Hey, what is up, YouTube? Kolst here. So I want to start out this video by just saying how shocking it is that I actually have to make this video right now, because we are like less than 2 months out from what was really, I think, the hottest period to ever hit like Hearthstone Arena since like 2018 at least. I mean, like, we had like Summit playing Arena. If you don't know who Summit is, he was like he's one of the biggest Twitch streamers. He has like he has regularly like 20 to 30,000 viewers on Twitch live. And he was playing Hearthstone. This VOD is less than 2 months old. Twitch VODs only last for 2 months. And he was playing like a bunch of Hearthstone, but especially a lot of Arena, because he liked Arena more than all the other modes, and he said as much. And we also had a period where it's like, this is like Sunglitter's channel, and she's been talking a bunch too about how it's like if they actually start supporting Arena, she would probably switch to Arena because she plays Battlegrounds right now, and she is sick as hell of Battlegrounds, basically. Not exactly her words, but it's pretty much what she said. And yet, nothing's happening, essentially. And by the way, Slay the Spire is a really great game. I was playing it too the other day. I definitely recommend if you haven't tried it already. So anyway, why am I making this video? So I'm making this video largely, I had some hopes that maybe something would come for Arena in this patch, but if you do like a simple, Control F, look for the word Arena in the most recent patch notes. Okay, it caught the ones on the sidebar here, but otherwise, there is nothing. There was not a single mention of the word Arena in the last patch notes. And actually, for this video, I decided let me pull up all the other patch notes. These are all the patch notes since the last expansion came out in December, I believe. So looking for Arena here. Okay, there's Arena changes. Okay, Honor in Arena. That's great. Arena Champions, that's not actually Arena. And then there's the rotation. Okay, but that happens every 2 months. There's no other mention of Arena. Now look at the next one. Arena update. The Bomb Lieutenant no longer draftable. That's great. The next one. Okay, there was a bug that was... They fixed the bug in Arena. Okay. Now we're at 22.1. We started in December. Now we're in February. Okay. Zero mention of Arena. The word is not in the patch notes. Okay. Next one. Zero mention of Arena. The word Arena is not in the patch notes. Next one. Okay. We have an Arena rotation again. Great. And there was a very rare bug that they fixed in Arena. Okay, cool. And then we're at the current one, which is 22.6. Where did I put this? It's over here. And then again, as we were talking about, zero mention of Arena. So essentially no changes at all since Abominable Lieutenant was banned to Arena. Now I want to talk about in a little more concrete sense. Hold up, I have like so many tabs open for this video. I have actually like 40 tabs open, so I may have to be a little patient. So let me move over myself for a little bit. Because I wanted to just show like what happens when a mode is just completely ignored like this. So let's look at standard. Like these are just the win rates of standard in Hearthstone right now. You can see like there's plenty of complaints in standard right now, but at least the game is remotely balanced. The worst classes are around 45%. The best classes are around 53%. Another mode which they're actually maintaining rather well right now is duels. You see it's slightly worse, but still generally about the same. Now let's look at like modes that they just don't maintain at all, like Wild. Wild is actually doing surprisingly well. The only really bad class is Demon Hunter, but that makes sense because Demon Hunter is basically forced to play with the standard, right? So it kind of makes sense. But like let's look at Classic. Like Classic is completely not maintained at all. It's just absolutely whatever it is, right? And I mean, you see like this kind of mess, like there's a class at 57% and a class at 40. That's kind of what happened. And you can see in Arena as well. You don't have quite so much of a problem at the top, thankfully, because that's the most important part. But again, like you have like a similar spread because you have multiple classes that are just absolutely garbage and way worse than everything else. So this is the consequence of what happens when Blizzard just completely forgets Arena exists, or at least doesn't care enough to do anything. By the way, I even wanted to just like point out, because one of the big issues with Arena right now is that if you're not aware, there's an epic bug, which means that cards that are supposed to be, let's actually pull one up right now. Normally cards that are epic are supposed to be less common than everything else. And you can sort by epics and see like, oh yeah, what are the most common cards in the game? There's like Brasswing, and let's look at like Mage is the biggest offender right now. So looking at Mage here, it's like, oh yeah, like half of their most frequently appearing cards are epics. These should be like 8% of decks, maybe, but they're, just as common as the most common cards in the game. Let me move myself over actually back to where I'm used to be. And that is why if you look at like the bug notes, I have like they have on Hearthstone's forum, they have these kind of like bug report forum where they talk about like known issues, and I'm looking at Arena. You can't find Arena here. That was the last patch, and this patch again, you can't even find Arena. I have seen tweets that they are aware of the issue, but like they're not even like officially reporting this stuff. So it's like, I mean, what faith are we supposed to have that they're ever going to fix it, right? Basically zero. So now that I've gotten out of this opening monologue, actually, I just want to talk about, so like the way I've already talked about, like kind of like all the evidence of what the situation is with Blizzard basically not touching Arena, but I want to talk about like essentially what they've said they might do in the near future. I'm gonna go over a bunch of tweets that, you know, some of the developers have sent out, and then talk about basically, you know, the feedback I've seen from you guys, because I know a lot of you guys are frustrated with the meta too, and just like kind of what I think might realistically change and what they really should change to actually, you know, address these kind of problems. So let's go up and check out some of these tweets here. So like the biggest source of really information as far as Arena is concerned is from Iksar. So with a lot of these devs, I've just done like a kind of search on basically their you can't see it quite here, but basically, you know, from this developer and Arena. And Iksar is one of the biggest guys at Blizzard. I believe he just got like, I forget what the name of it was, but he's basically one of the top dogs as far as the Hearthstone team is concerned now. And he's one of the most frequent guys that actually talks about Arena, because he seems relatively interested in it, but, you know, it doesn't always translate into, you know, things really getting done. So part of the reason we've gotten into this mess in the first place was essentially, you know, what happened was back in, I don't know exactly when, but December, there was a guy that was one of the guys. Basically, I kind of always suspected that there was just like one guy at Blizzard basically taking care of Arena, and that was the only reason that we got any changes at all. And basically, we had that confirmed 2 months ago, right when, you know, 2 months ago was right when everything started to fall apart, and that was right when we found out actually that the one guy that was taking care of Arena basically left the company and wasn't replaced yet, or hasn't been yet. And that is why, you know, the way that they do balance in Arena is a system called micro adjust, which basically, you know, I don't know, he was a data scientist. He did some kind of like some kind of, you know, mathematical solution to try to like balance everything, get everything close to 50% as balanced as possible. But essentially, since he left, it's not that they couldn't do it, but no one has figured out how to do it yet, and we haven't had a micro adjust since he left in December, basically. So, you know, that's why Arena has been in this kind of situation where, you know, we've been frankly lucky that it hasn't been as worse than it has been. It's really bad in Arena, as I kind of mentioned earlier, if a class is super overpowered, because then it just dominates everything. And Mage feels that way, but a lot of mage decks are terrible too, so, you know, it's kind of hit or miss. But yeah, we're just really lucky that nothing is like super busted. But anyway, that's the Cliff Notes explanation of why Arena isn't, at least in the short term, being maintained really at all. So what was interesting about that was actually a month before all of this stuff was when, you know, there was this conversation on Twitter between a lot of the devs actually on the Hearthstone team. And, you know, Iksar was the guy who proposed this idea of how about we make a cube. If you're not aware of a cube was, he explains earlier. And what this is basically, I think it's a Magic the Gathering term, but it would be the idea of essentially hard defining what the actual card pool is, card by card. So not just saying, you know, what they do in Arena is, like, as we can see in one of these patch notes here, like this one, they just pick, like, you know, there's a bunch of sets that are in the game, and they just decide, okay, let's just pick whichever sets we feel like, you know, and those will be the sets. And how they decide these sets, we don't really have any insight into. I mean, this set, it was kind of obvious. They picked a lot of dragons, for better or for worse, really for worse. But this would mean that they would actually hand curate in such a sense, mean so much more attention, and could be a disaster, frankly, but I mean, could also be, you know, the best thing that's happened to Arena, frankly, since Arena was created in 2013. It could be amazing. It could be disaster, but it could be amazing. But at the least, it would mean that, you know, they would actually be paying attention to Arena. But they talk about, like, you know, part of the thing that they mentioned somewhere in here, yeah, like Iksar, throughout the patch 22.6. I mean, that just happens to be, as we can see here, the patch that this was the patch that they just released now, which is actually kind of part of the reason I was like, I knew it wouldn't come, but I was like, you know, I don't want to make this video a week before 22.6 and then look like an idiot, right? So I was just waiting before recording this video, but I mean, officially now, you know, I don't have to wait anymore. So what I wanted to talk about now is just essentially kind of like all the other developers that kind of touch on Arena sometimes and just kind of see like, the kind of stuff they're talking about. Because there's been a few things, but not a whole lot. And especially not a whole lot that's been, things that are really actionable or things it seems like they've been doing. Oh yeah, so the first thing I wanted to talk about, because a lot of these tweets by Iksar, like he's talking about like they're thinking about how they're talking about redoing the system since Tian left, talking about essentially making a whole new system. But for the time being, we may or may not, have any adjustments. And it's clear that, not having an adjustment in 4 months, it's clear that they chose the have not strategy, right? So, and it could be in the long term good if they do release a system that does make things better. But that relies on them like actually doing something. And as far as we can tell, it's not clear that they are. He mentions here, I want to put some insight into, they talk about there's like been a team reorg into, within the Hearthstone team. So I wanted to pull up this graphic really fast and just talk about kind of what I've gathered from a bunch of these is literally just from tweets. And, hopefully at some point I'll interview someone at Blizzard and actually like find out how accurate all this stuff is. But I just wanted to pull this up here. Okay, so I'm looking up and apparently you can't actually set custom zoom in Paint for some reason. So I'm gonna just have to like lean over here to make this visible. So, okay, this is my best understanding of like what the Hearthstone team actually looks like. So there's basically this giant area here, which is basically just general Hearthstone. I have Battlegrounds separated, but honestly, it seems like a lot of the same people kind of work on the actual game, the general like traditional Hearthstone and Battlegrounds. So that's why I have this arrows here too, is like, I feel like these are mostly the same people, but they have, the general team, which, they have like couple different sections called final design, initial design, balance, general teams. And theoretically, there's this small like QA team, which we can't really tell if that exists or not, but they seem to say it exists. So we'll just trust them. And I believe that this team also determines like, some of the other modes like wild and classic, theoretically, occasionally they touch those modes, right? And there was a reorg that happened that essentially created, I think this was basically the entire Hearthstone team, and there was a reorg that essentially created a couple other teams. Actually, I think modes existed already, but I don't think that modes actually was in control of Arena specifically. Because Iksar had said something to the effect that there's better clarity about who owns Arena. I think it means that, the modes team now owns Arena. But the modes team typically had been in charge of, Tavern Brawl, single player. They were working on a bunch of like, the new Tavern Brawls. At this point, Tavern Brawls basically, they're just reusing old ones, right? And I believe one of the other changes too, I think duels, the reason I have duels here is I think duels used to have a dedicated team. I don't think it does anymore. And actually, I think they've moved over to the modes. And so frankly, the reason that Arena isn't getting many changes in a large effect, I think, is because they've been investing a lot into duels, which is an interesting decision. But, and of course, I should mention, there's also the Mercenaries team because, people treat Mercenaries like it's a failure, but at least financially for Blizzard, it was anything but a failure. It sucked a lot of money out of people, which is basically its purpose. But yeah, so I just wanted to really talk about this, just explain kind of like where Arena is, because I think part of the reason none of these changes have been happening is probably because it's been transitioned from the people that occasionally did work on it before to this new team that, just hasn't really taken it over yet. But with that, let's move me back into a bit of the center of the screen and let's talk more about some of these kind of tweets. So essentially, I mean, Iksar had a tweet saying that the only Arena person left, and that's why there haven't been any changes. This is back in January, by the way, and I mean, not much has changed since then, so I don't know. The one thing he said, which was really interesting here, was that he said that they have a modes, this is part of where I got this chart from. They have a modes team, and that modes team took over a rather intensive project recently, but he doesn't say when this is, what this is. So there is a chance, he said this would come in like the next 1 to 2 months as of a week ago. So it could be maybe the next major patch. And as I said, I think the modes team is between, these 4 modes right here. So I really doubt they would reworking single player right now, just because they have Mercenaries. And I don't think they're reworking duels with the amount that they're investing into duels otherwise. So it's like, I could be naive, but it's like, this is either something for Arena or it might be a Tavern Brawl rework. And I'm going to be really, really annoyed when I find out it's a Tavern Brawl rework, because of course it will be. But, you know, there's a real chance it could be an Arena thing. We'll find out, I guess. And his most recent tweet was talking Team America, who is a duels player. He's making a push for like skill-based matchmaking arena. He's basically saying like people wouldn't like it, so they haven't done it yet, which, you know, I don't think that's going to be the change that's coming in. So with that, I wanted to move on to like kind of some of the other devs that talk about arena sometimes. Gallon is one of the key guys, it seems like, since Tian left. He seems like one of the biggest guys. He hasn't really been saying a whole lot. He mentioned that they're discussing long-term solutions, and I think he might have been one of the guys that maybe was working on it a bit more in the old, you know, the old org for Blizzard. We don't really know. But like one of the last things they talked about was there was this thread where actually it was Zeddy who made this post talking about how he made this post before Onyxia's Lair came out, talking about how, you know, raid boss Onyxia, with how easy it would be to discover between, you know, the explorers, how this card would be just, you know, totally insane and would completely break arena in nicer terms. You know, he added a Songbird and Gallon, and they both said like, you know, they like, yeah, that's probably right, but you know, nothing's been done about this. And yeah, so essentially, you know, there's been kind of silent. Celestalon sometimes talks about arena, but, you know, the last tweet he said about arena, this is not arena, this is a different arena game. He talked about the old org here, but otherwise, like, he hasn't talked about arena since December. Cora's last tweet was about how arena isn't dead, talking about how Summit was playing, but you know, these were all her tweets about arena, so basically nothing about arena. And you know, the one person, she's not a dev, I guess, because she's a community manager, but Alkali's been doing a lot for arena, which as I'm recording this video, probably won't come out before, but, you know, they're doing a card reveals, because one of the cool things, I know she's done a few things for arena actually, where but this is one thing where essentially a lot of the cards that are like neutral cards that, you know, constructed players would consider boring hack filler stuff, they, instead of not having any reveals for them at all, she's been giving them to a few arena streamers. So that's been really cool, and I'm gonna watch that in a couple hours. But otherwise, you know, from her too, like, there's not much of, you know, really going on. Obviously, community manager can only do so much, right? And Hearthstone Deck Tech was the last one I wanted to pull up, but essentially nothing from him either. And so essentially the end state we have here is, you know, they have a decent amount of talking about, you know, them wanting to do things, but not a lot about them actually doing things, right? And this has been kind of a constant thing from Blizzard as far as arena is concerned. This is something we're very, very used to, right? Where, you know, they say like, we like arena and we want to do something, but, you know, frankly, they find things that make them more money that they are, you know, going to do instead, basically. And I guess like kind of the reason I want to make like a bigger deal about this, as I said, we're kind of used to this, but the reason I want to make a bigger deal about this than I normally do is because, like, you know, like in like, I'm gonna like refer to like Mercenaries, for example, which actually has a dedicated team, by the way, but very new as well. But all of the, like, even the most dedicated Mercenaries streamers, I play the game a lot, so I follow it a bit closely, or I play a lot less now, but I still kind of like the game. But like, even this is like one of the most dedicated Mercenaries creators, very small creator, but still very dedicated, who's telling them like how greedy they are and fix their game. And another one here, the other like most dedicated English speaking, at least, Mercenaries career, I said, talking about how packs are predatory and how you should never spend money or even like in-game gold on them. This guy is one of the key guys that's making like constant videos for this game. The only other person that makes like a ton of Mercenaries content basically on a regular basis is Old Guardian, but, you know, he'll make his Mercenaries content when stuff drops and then he'll, you know, move away, which is probably the smart thing to do as far as that's concerned. But yeah, otherwise it's like, you know, you have the biggest creators, the most dedicated people revolting because, you know, they've also said in Mercenaries, like, kind of, we want to like change things. We want to fix the excess coin issue if you're aware of that. But it's not happening anytime soon, basically. Because, you know, essentially, like, Iksar made this tweet just like a week ago in his last AMA. He's starting to get a little involved with mercenaries because he got to, like, such a high position within the team. And it bothers them, but they're thinking about it and they're not, you know, no progress has been made. So they're not going to do anything. A lot of people expected this to be fixed in, like, January or even December, right? And this is something that, I mean, I think we're going to be lucky if we get it this year, basically. So again, like, I want to talk about, like, just essentially not just like kind of where we are, but I want to talk a little bit now about kind of where we might go, where we realistically, and what if I had any input on it, where we might go. So I made this comment the other thread. Let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit so you guys can maybe read. Talking about like why I'm not playing quite so much, and just talking about like, you know, they don't seem interested in fixing any of the problems. So what do you guys want to see? So just read over some of these comments here. Like one guy saying sick of neutral stone, retiring decks because of the terrible deck quality. Because this is a result of, you know, them not really, well, first of all, it's a result of them putting in such a terrible rotation that had a bunch of these old sets. And essentially that forces you to get offered a bunch of these terrible cards that just can't compete with the new cards. I think it's a real problem when they have like these new sets that are super power crept essentially, and a bunch of these old sets combined, because, you know, cards from 2015 just can't compete anymore, right? That's just the realistic thing. That's just the truth of it. So they need to be a little more careful about that and put a little more thought into what the rotations are. But until they do that, yeah. And this is not much to talk about for that one. As far as what we're talking about, this is a guy talking about how it's starting to feel like how it did in 2018. And I wasn't playing a lot of Arena back in 2018. But he's talking about how the game's feeling less skill intensive, more focused on random bullshit, basically. And I mean, I had a lot of experience in, you know, right when Descent of Dragons launched, and that's what Descent of Dragons is, right what just came out again. And I mean, essentially, yeah, it's turned into that. I've always liked to be, you know, to try to be as consistent as possible and have good, consistent results, but that's just not possible right now. You can't really just have a stable playstyle. You're forced to play into the random bullshit strategy because it's just better than everything else, frankly. So, and he talks about how there's abundance of broken cards as well. And yeah, I mean, that's part of it, is like cards like Raid Boss and Nixia, like they literally themselves, wherever this was, I forget which tab it was on, but they acknowledged themselves that they thought it was a problem. I don't know where it was, but they just haven't done anything about it, you know. And if they can't do, you know, it's one of those things where if they can't do like this super complicated micro adjust system, like why can't they can still balance the game by just banning a couple cards, like even indiscriminately, to say, oh, this class is a little too strong. Oh, we have this epic bug and we can't fix it, so let's just ban Puzzle Box or Rolling Fireball or Flame Strike or whatever, just to like, you know, bring things closer. Like I just don't get why they don't do that. But, and I know that part of the reason, as you said, like mage decks are fun, and I know that part of the reason they probably don't hit mage too hard is because people like mage, and probably the only people liking arena right now are the people that like to play mage. So, you know, it has that. So I get that, but you know, it's not good for the health of the mode, I'll put it that way. And here we have just another positive comment from this guy, just about like, not about the meta though. And the last one is just, you know, cards that completely shift the game in 1 to 2 turns. Because I completely agree. Like, this is just something that to me, at least, is fundamental to Arena. I know some people like Arena being like just completely like insane bullshit, but there's other modes in Hearthstone, in my opinion, to experience like insane random bullshit. And I just don't think every mode needs to be the same, and every mode doesn't need to have that. And like Arena, you know, Arena has this kind of like fundamental idea with it. I think that, you know, you're supposed to be, at least to some sense, like building an advantage over time. All your decisions, you don't have necessarily the hardest decisions to make even, but like at least you're going to gain value over decisions over time, and that everything will matter and it'll affect the end results of the game. But now it's like, you know, you have cards that just make everything that happened before it completely irrelevant, right? And like these kind of things just, I don't think should exist in Arena. I don't think they should exist, period. But especially they shouldn't exist and be, you know, legendaries that, even though they're supposed to be rare, right, are being discovered frequently by common cards. It's just completely insane. You know, part of what makes this meta so challenging to enjoy is that normally, at least for someone like me too, like you can typically just kind of draft like, okay, well, I'm going to draft more aggressive and just tempo and stuff and try to kill them before their insane bullshit can go off. But the insane bullshit is such a low cost to discover, or they can just draft it. And because there's all these crappy sets in the meta, because they didn't, they weren't careful about actually thinking about how to actually decide sets for this meta. There's all these terrible cards. Your deck is almost every deck is going to have a whole bunch of these terrible cards. So you don't have the ability to kill your opponent by turn 10 because your deck is all garbage. I've had like so many games actually where my opponent like had complete outer board control, like 5 minions on board on like turn 4, something like that, like completely insane. And then they just can't kill me because they completely missed a turn because half their deck is garbage. And it's just like, it's insane. Then I guess, so the last thing I want to talk about is essentially just what I think might be realistic that could actually be done about it, and what I would like to have done about it. I mean, the first and most fundamental thing, there's been some discussions, about like, possibly implementing like a rank system, but like, this doesn't fix the problem. They could do whatever system they want, and if arena is continuously ignored, it's going to be, the constant problem. So the first thing that has to be done fundamentally is that, Blizzard has to like give a fuck about arena. To put it really bluntly, it's a little scary because, to get them to give a fuck about arena might involve them completely blowing up the monetization and trying to like have them suck more money out of the community and stuff, which would possibly be bad. But I mean, it could be worth it if it makes them actually care. Ideally, they would care without that, but, we have to talk about, what's realistic. Hopefully they would care just a little bit, just enough to do at least like basic maintenance for the game mode and at least try to, even out these win rates occasionally a little bit, right? And the second thing we have to talk about is like, I think there needs to be a solution to the variance problem. I know Iksar himself is not, he's said things. He's responded to some of my AMA comments and basically said he's not, he kind of likes variance in arena because it essentially allows worse players to win more than they would because, it puts them in situations where they can't lose. But I don't think this is a healthy way to solve that problem. We have like a few cards now that if you just like sort by win rates here, like, Ruin the Archmage. Let me look at neutrals though, because that's not a fair comparison. But Raid Boss and Nixie and Ysera and Ivus as well, just being absolutely insane. Hard time even played win rates, which like just I mean like what is this? Right? It's just crazy. But I think it's just a thing in general. This is like something that if you watch like Grinning Goat does a podcast sometimes and they talk about these kind of like, game design ideas. And there's just like, and so occasionally like the point does get brought up to Iksar. Like, where do I have it here? That, there's, I think there's a fundamental idea that in arena, there should be a certain ceiling to the power level of cards. You'll say like, whenever there's a strong card in arena, take it out, no strong cards in arena. It's like there are gonna be strong cards in arena, and especially when cards, like if a lot of cards are strong, it's okay, because if everything's strong then nothing is strong, kind of, right? It's not entirely how it works, but it's pretty much how it works. But you get all these problems when there's cards that like just completely end games by themselves on a really regular basis. And especially, I mean, when you have like a card like Wildpaw Cavern, like Jesus, like it's just being like a rare card that does it on turn 3, turn 4, or it could be earlier if you have Lightning Bloom. Like it just shouldn't exist. But essentially what makes it even worse is like if you're going to have like these kind of strong cards, like you need to ensure that you don't have all of these, garbage old sets coming in from these, these old patches and stuff. I need to pull up the 22.4. You need to not have all these like terrible old sets coming back, because it's one thing if you have a Raid Boss Onyxia. I have beaten a couple of Raid Boss Onyxias that have been played against me because I've had really strong decks by chance. But if you have a deck that just doesn't have anything, even like a third of the power level of Raid Boss, you can be up 5 cards and still lose because Raid Boss will beat half of your entire deck, right? So there is this variance problem that needs to be solved. I think it needs to be solved a little bit at the top, but especially it needs to be solved at the bottom, just not having all these terrible decks. Because I mean, I know, like he said in his tweet here. Like he likes to have, I think he said he likes to have like, you know, he likes there to be variance in experience where you have good decks and bad decks, but it's like, who the hell likes to have these like completely garbage, terrible decks? Like even if you take a terrible deck to like 5 wins, it's like, it's not like it feels good, you know? Like I don't know why this needs to be a thing. So that's like one of the number one things that's not like quite such an necessarily easy thing to solve, but that's like one of the biggest things I would like to see solved personally. And then talking about the other things I'd like to be solved, I mean, just generally, you know, fixing the balance state of the game, fixing the, you know, the bugs that are in the game, you know, the epic bug. Let's not have mage, you know, have like all of their top cards be epic rarity by appearance rate. That would be nice. We're actually very lucky, I think, that, you know, we're in a meta where most other classes don't have that many great epics, so you don't see the same problem everywhere else. But in mage, you know, it's a pretty significant issue. And then the last thing really is just, you know, sometimes, you know, they have cards that are banned from Arena. And up to this point, I think it's been something that they haven't, it used to not be super important because it used to be really uncommon, but it's becoming more and more common. It's just going to become more of an issue in the future, is that they won't remove cards from Arena that are banned cards, the cards you cannot draft. Because right now, specifically, you know, you have like the hero cards. Like, you know, like specifically, like, you know, all these cards, like these cards, they decided very, very long ago, and they might undo this decision at the rate they're going for things. But, you know, just cards like, you know, Kurtrus, like they made it so these things are not draftable just by rule because they tend to win you the game automatically if you get them. So it makes it, you know, there was a real problem back in like 2017 or whenever that was, back when, you know, the Knights of Frozen Throne came out and there were all the hero cards that were way better than everything else. Frostleaf Jaina gives a lot of people nightmares to this day, from what I've heard. But yeah, these cards are not draftable, but if you have a way to generate random cards, you can still get them, right? And it's like, for all this stuff, it's like, you know, that's just another kind of variance. That's just why do we need to have this? It just doesn't make any sense, really. So yeah, that would be, you know, one of the biggest changes. It feels like a change they have to make. And maybe if they were to do, you know, this kind of arena cube idea, maybe this would actually be fixed automatically because they just wouldn't put in hero cards, or at least not hero cards that completely broke the game. But, you know, we'll have to see if that actually happens or not. But anyway, I guess that's everything I wanted to say in this video, I think. So if you hit the like button if you like the video, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Let me know in the comment section again what you guys think about this meta. Do you think this meta is amazing? Because I know some people like this meta. There's different types of players that like arenas, I kind of alluded to earlier. And some people really, I think, might like a meta like this. But for a lot of the arena community, this is, you know, just not what we want to see. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. And yeah, I guess that's it. I've been, this is 50 minutes into my recording. I should probably head off. So thanks a lot for hanging around today. I should probably start streaming at some point. Check us out at twitch.tv/kolst if you want to talk more about it. But yeah, see you guys in the next one. Peace out.